little bit extra time before you go home and watch Netflix or whatever else you would like to be doing on a Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever day it is, evening. So appreciate you coming through. Welcome to Agile Marketing Indy. It is a space for process-minded marketers and creatives looking for new ways of getting shit done. Right, so we are super excited about that. We set some really aggressive goals this year across a lot of different areas. One thing was increasing the quality and diversity of the speakers coming through and sharing with you. So really excited about that today. We were also wanted to make sure we diversify distribution channels, right? Because we understand that no matter how much you want to get to networking events, for many of us, we are not only busy professionals, but also have busy lives at home with our family and our friends, et cetera. You can't always make it out to some of these events. We wanted to make sure you could actually get the content regardless of where you might be and whether you could come into the rooms themselves. We worked on kind of our guiding principles and the promises we wanted to make to the audience or to the guests that were coming in themselves. And then also forming strategic partnerships with folks that could help drive all of those things forward. Right, so that was another huge one for us that we wanted to make sure of going into this year and being very specific about who those partners were. Because if we're going to be honest, some of the partners that we had last year or year before, although they helped us move us forward, they weren't always the exact best for what we were trying to accomplish. And a lot's happened since the last session, right? So for those of you that joined us last month, we launched the podcast last month, and since then we actually just released a new episode this morning. With the author of The Art of Agile Marketing. He shared some really, really, really cool stuff around how his company got started, and it was very tactical, which seems to be a reoccurring theme for all the folks coming in. And then on top of that, we got some episode commitments from, I think, some really exciting companies coming in as well. We interviewed one this morning from a new project management tool in the Agile space. We also have Gong coming in. We have Discover.org that signed up to be on the podcast. And then also, as of yesterday, American Express as well. So we've got some really, really cool, I think, folks coming in to share some really nice stuff about how they're doing, not only just in Agile, but just for process management inside of marketing as a whole. We also, for next month, got Active Campaign, which is a really high growth marketing automation tool coming in to speak with us. We'll have that actually dropped. We'll give you the information about that at the end of this particular session. And we got a new sponsor, BitLoft. So this is our new gold sponsor. They're not only helping make sure we can come in here and meet and have some great spaces and pizza and all that kind of good stuff, but they're also amazing at video, and they're kind of our video sponsor for Agile Marketing. So for those of you that went to like the Miro Awards this year, they did some amazing recap videos there, speaking with a lot of the luminaries here in town in the tech marketing space, as well as a lot of folks throughout the Indiana government that are helping move it forward. So I'm really, really excited about that. I'm actually going to have them come up for a second and chit-chat about what exactly it is that they do and what they're going to be doing with our group. So come on up.
Thank you, Mohammed. My name's Travis Lynch. I'm EVP of Business Development for BitLoft, and this is Tim Hovius. He's recently joined our team in the last month or so as an account executive. And I don't really know if I could give a better introduction than Mohammed has, but we've got a pretty broad range of technical and creative services. And as Mohammed mentioned, video production is a growing segment of that portfolio. And we did have a great opportunity to partner with TechPoint to produce video for the Miro Awards. And in addition to that segment of our work, we also do web and mobile app development, we do game development, and we've got a growing presence in professional esports. So those are kind of some of the less common things that we're into. If we've got an in-kind partnership with Agile Marketing, and we're looking forward to producing some video content for them, and I'm really excited to see what that's going to turn out looking like. And that's about it. We're really excited to hear from Anna and enjoy the presentation. Tim, did I miss anything?
No, if you have any questions, feel free to follow up with us afterwards.
This is your guy to talk to.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate them being on board. So outside of BitLoft, we also have several other sponsors we need to make sure we recognize. Share Your Genius. They are helping us with the podcast itself. there are a lot of people launching podcasts right now, right? It can be one of those things that is actually kind of challenging to get off the ground. It's not just as simple as sitting down and recording something in GarageBand and hitting the publish button. There's actually a lot of work that goes into the behind the scenes to making that final product, and Share Your Genius has made that incredibly easy for us to to get off the ground. So definitely a thank you to them. Also to Design on Tap for helping with design, the website, keeping that up and running, making that beautiful. And we are clearly at LTC. Location sponsor. One of the amazing things I think about keeping this event going for 2 years has been the willingness of the marketing community inside of Indianapolis to actually offer space to us for 2 years straight at no cost. And that has been a huge, huge, huge help to actually making these meetups happen and creating these spaces where we can get together and actually share some pretty cool ideas. So actually have them come up for a quick second as well and just kind of chit chat about what they're doing here also.
You didn't have to do that. My name actually is Tony. He didn't believe me. Clifton didn't believe my name is Tony. Welcome. I guess the biggest thing I want to say is the bathrooms are out this door to the left and then to the right, then to the left down the hallway. LTC, we are a language solutions company, a full house company. So we do anything related to language training, translating, interpreting is what we do. It's an amazing place where I really feel like the service we provide is beneficial to a lot of different people from all different walks of life. So if you need anything translated, both on a private scale and also a global scale, we handle that for you and interpreting too all across the country, not just for Indianapolis, but across the country. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to ask me or Eric. Eric is our digital marketing manager right here, and I'm the marketing director for LTC. So we're happy that you're here.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. We really, really appreciate it. So a couple of housekeeping things as well. I would be remiss if I did not mention about all the different social media channels that you can participate on, whether that's via Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We've got a great community there. Folks actually sharing a lot of information. The Instagram channel is surprisingly popular and actually one of our most, I think, engaged with platforms. And then, of course, YouTube, where for many of these sessions, you can actually pull down videos in addition to the podcast.
And side note, before we move on to the Slack, there's this very expensive Agile marketing photo frame out there. It's like $70, so people better use it. Speaking of Instagram, we're trying to get
look at that.
up in here.
Look at that. So come see us later and we will get it done. Thank you.
If
Also,
at least like 5 pictures on Insta after this of that, I'm going to be sad. So.
Totally. Also Slack. So Slack's another big one. There's a lot of folks on there. I mention this every time, but I'm super excited about the Slack channel in particular because of the fact that it is one of the channels that was actually created by one of the people that comes to these events, right? That is not one that the board came up with. It is one that a guest coming into the room, a regular attendee, created on his own. We have a lot of chat in there actually for the board. We coordinate everything through a channel inside of Agile Marketing Indy's Slack. So join there. There's a job board, right? There is kind of a book club going on there. Come join. Just kind of chit-chat great in between these actual sessions. Or you can join us on LinkedIn. If you need help finding any of those, you can chat with Eva or I or anyone else kind of on the board as well. Speaking of the board, can I have everyone for Agile kind of just stand up really quick? One of the things that we do not talk about enough in the room, I think for Eve and I both, all three of them, and there's a few others as well, is the reason we were able to put these on and get them going consistently and also create all this content around it really is because of the tireless effort of the board that we have helping get things done. So thank you for not only kind of sacrificing your time in the middle of the night and enduring our random Slack questions about things like, I just bugged Margarita about discount codes for next month because I was like, I don't know how to do it. And she helped me. So thank you for all of them and for all of your work. They've been helping out for about the past year or so, and it's been freaking phenomenal. So thank you. Round of applause for them as well, since no one likes to clap in here.
Love clapping for people around here.
Exactly. We're just going to keep doing that. All right. So just a reminder also, we are recording, so when we get to the Q&A session on the back end, please wait for the microphone before you ask your questions so we can actually know what you said if we are listening to the podcast. All right, so we're going to get started with Anna. Anna has quite the bio, which I'm going to read all the way through because I think it's really freaking cool. So, Anna is the senior product designer at Trello, leading design for Trello's enterprise tier for organizations using Trello on a large scale across multiple teams. This, for those of you that came several months ago to the Kyle one, and honestly, kind of a reoccurring theme across many people that have been talking to us, have a lot of questions about how in the world you can actually use Trello once it gets past your individual checklist for groceries and things like that. And I think she's going to help answer a lot of that stuff. So really excited about that. She's been proud and fortunate to do design work for a variety of companies here in Indianapolis, Springbuck, Salesforce, Our Health, Doxley, Blackbaud. She's been kind of all over town helping a lot of folks, which is really, really cool. Just working the loop, 465. It works. She's a big proponent for collaborative design methodologies and looks for opportunities to work with colleagues from different disciplines, including marketing as often as possible. I actually first met her saw her at a design event here in town where she was sharing on that kind of stuff. So that was pretty cool, down on the south side, which you prefer. So thank you for coming up here. Outside of work, Anna and her wife, also named Anna, are foster parents to two amazing boys, have a petting zoo's worth of dogs and cats, which I think is awesome. And as I just learned, also prefer to shop on the south side, even though the Costco up here is probably just as close.
But the Costco on the south side
is on the south side.
And it's less busy. It really is.
There we go. Got a couple folks. So thank you. So I'm just going to hand it off to her, and we're going to get started. As far as format today, she's going to chat for a little bit, kind of run through some stuff with Trello, and then her and Eva are going to sit down, kind of chit-chat, interview style for a minute, and then we'll follow that up with Q&A, and then we'll eat more pizza and drink more beer and say hi and bye and stuff. All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone, so much for having me today. I'm really excited to talk to all of you. Today I'm going to talk about using Trello for teams, both within teams and across teams in your place of work. Mostly I'm going to focus on showing you how we use Trello at Trello. So basically like an insider's look at how we use Trello at Trello to collaborate with each other, to get shit done, and to strengthen teams. Mohammed basically stole all of the content for my intro slide by reading my bio, so I don't know if there's much I can add, but here's a GIF of a chicken running, holding a can of either beer or soda, and with a human hand waving. This is my favorite GIF to say hello to people. We have it in Slack. So I recommend finding this GIF, adding it to your Slack channels, and using it to say hello to people. A little bit more about what I do at Trello. As Mohammed mentioned, I lead design for the enterprise tier of Trello. For those unfamiliar with the different tiers, there is our free offering. Next step up is business class, which is basically the tier of Trello that we recommend for folks using Trello in small teams at work. And then there's the enterprise tier, which is what I work on, that's intended for people using Trello across multiple teams or in larger companies that have kind of more robust administrative and security needs in Trello. So the agenda for tonight, first I'm going to respond to Kyle Lacey's spicy comments. So Mohammed did a lot of tweeting and LinkedIning and stuff, quoting a tweet from Kyle Lacey's meetup, and I think he was trying to start some drama, and I think some of you were all excited, and I hate to let you down. There's not actually going to be that much drama. I'm sorry, but I would like to respond to that. And then I'm going to go into, like I said, how we use Trello at Trello, and I'm going to go through different kind of subject areas for how we use it. So first I'm going to go through examples of how our marketing team uses Trello. I'm obviously not on the marketing team, but I was shown how our marketing team uses Trello, so I'm going to share that with you. Show you about how we use Trello for professional development, how we use it for travel and events, how we use it for culture building and fun, how we use public boards to share content outside of Trello, and I'm going to wrap it up by sharing some tips and tricks for using Trello at scale. Since I hear, some of the biggest pain points for using Trello are kind of like what Mohammed mentioned, which is, I use it for personal task management, but once I start using it with a team or within my company, it kind of breaks down. So the quote that was shared was, when we were using Trello, things just got missed sometimes because Trello is not a project management tool. They would like to say that they are, but they're not. For very large teams, I don't think it works very well. So I'm going to get pedantic here for a minute. Bear with me. Trello does not actually claim to be a project management tool like tools like Asana or Monday.com do. So tools like Asana or Monday.com put their foot forward and say we are a project management tool. The way that Trello was designed, here's a GIF of the Trello homepage just because it's fun and I like to show it. From Trello's inception and how it is right now, the purpose of Trello is to be able to plan and organize anything with anybody. And that's part of what makes Trello so popular and so viral, is because you can use it to plan anything from your wedding to a vacation. You can use it to organize your recipes or plan out the blog posts you want to write, all the way up to using it at work to work with your marketing team or work with everybody in your company or plan out dev work. So Trello was designed purposely agnostic of any one vertical or any one type of work so that you can use it for anything. That said, obviously, a lot of people like to use Trello for project management. And Trello itself puts out a lot of content to talk about how you can use Trello for project management. We have a lot of content on our blog, webinars, stuff like that. What Kyle said, we hear these things a lot. That project management is hard in Trello, and that Trello breaks down at scale. As the person who leads design for our enterprise product, which is people using Trello on a gigantic scale, I especially hear these things a lot. So that's why there's not a lot of drama with this quote, because everything he says are things we hear. They are pain points we hear. Hopefully what I show you tonight can help kind of speak to some of those pain points, and I can share some tips and tricks for that. And that's why I was called up to come speak at this meetup. So here's a GIF of me answering Mohammed's call, sitting in my trophy room. He called me up because he found out there was somebody in Indianapolis who worked at Trello. There's actually 2 of us in Indianapolis who work at Trello. We're a mostly remote company. There's, I think, about 25% of us work at the New York headquarters. The rest of us are very distributed. 2 of us work in Indianapolis. There's 4 people from Trello who work in Indiana, so we're building it up. So before I move on, I just want to give a disclaimer that this presentation isn't about me trying to convince any of you to use Trello or to buy Trello. I'm not trying to convince anybody that there's one right way to use Trello. My goal here is just to kind of give you an insider's look into how we use it at Trello and try to give you some tips and tricks that speak to some of the pain points that I hear all of you have been having, or Trello users have been having. So without any further ado, Trello for marketing teams. So I'm going to share some of the boards that our marketing team uses. You will see that some of these boards are either, I created a duplicate of an existing board and put in dummy data, or I took a screenshot of a board and blurred out some content just because there's I can't share everything, I guess, I don't know. All right, so marketing overview board. The marketing team created this board in order to communicate externally from the marketing team. So the goal audience of this board is basically leadership or anybody external to the marketing team who wants to be able to quickly check in and see what anybody on the marketing team is doing. You can see the leftmost list, it's team updates, BAU, which is business as usual. Each card in that list is designated for a specific sub-team in marketing. So there's content, there's product marketing, there's marketing designers, it goes on. In each of those team cards, they use comments in the cards to give a weekly update. So each week, somebody from those sub-teams comes into those cards and makes basically a bulleted list of their weekly update. So at any given time, I can come to this board, go into the card for a specific team, and see basically a list of historical weekly updates for that team. Another thing that they do with these updates is that they have a Slack integration, which you can either add as a Slack power-up to a board, or you can add the Trello integration to Slack. And whenever anybody comments on a card, that comment gets sent to a Slack channel. So what that means is that you don't always have to come into this Trello board to see team updates. You can hang out in whatever Slack channel it's being sent to. That way, whenever a marketing sub-team makes an update, you can see that in the Slack channel. But for those of you unfamiliar with integrations and power-ups, I can certainly talk with you afterwards about how those work, because I'm going to mention some of those in the presentation. So the next list over is a list of projects that are related to our key goals and objectives. And each of the cards there represents kind of a high-level project that the marketing team is working on. Most of those cards are basically kind of high-level placeholders for work that's being done, and within those cards are links to other Trello cards and boards where the main meat and potatoes of the work is being tracked. And then the last two lists are showing go-to-market initiatives, basically what product launches are going on, either upcoming product launches or product launches that have already been done. So again, each of those is an individual product or feature launch, and each of those cards typically will link to another board that has all of the details about a product launch, and I'm going to show you templates for that in a minute. You'll notice that some of the cards are kind of brown and look a little bit like they've been aging. That is actually a power-up that's been installed called card aging. What that does, the purpose of that is to show how long it's been since a card has been touched or updated. So cards that are totally white means that they've been updated recently. Cards that are super brown means that nobody has touched them recently at all. So that's the marketing overview board. So the next board I want to show is basically the internal marketing team board. So the previous board was intended for folks outside of the marketing team. This board is intended for everybody within the marketing team. The leftmost list, and you'll see this kind of as a theme in most of our boards, is a list to kind of orient you to the board. It provides information about the board. It provides resources that you might need to better understand the rest of this board. That's definitely something that we always recommend when creating a board. Is the first list just has information and resources that you need to kind of orient you to the rest of the board. The second list just has a bunch of information about the people on the marketing team when they're out of office, just any information you might need to know about them. The rest of the board basically revolves around the weekly marketing team meetings. And you'll actually see a setup like this in a lot of the boards that we have at Trello. And what I really like about this is you'll see a list for a meeting template, and then you will see lists for meetings that have already happened. So the meeting template is basically the agenda for the next meeting. And what I like about having this on a board is that anybody on the team can come to this board and contribute to this list. So that means anytime throughout the week, anybody on your team can come and either see what's on the agenda or contribute a topic to the agenda. So when you guys start the meeting, everybody knows what you're going to talk about, everybody knows what's on the agenda. Then during the meeting, as you discuss items, you have this board up, you open up cards as you're talking about them, you take notes in the cards, you add checklists to the cards, add notes, you assign people to the cards, and then move them over to the date that you discussed them. That way, not only do you have kind of like a living, breathing agenda before the meeting, but after the meeting, you basically have a historical view of all of the meetings you have, all of the topics you discussed, all of the action items that you've assigned. So what's really nice about this compared to other ways that I've seen people kind of create and track agendas and share meeting notes is that there's a single source of truth for everything. I also wanted to show you, and I'm going to talk more about this later, but Trello on our website, we have a bunch of boards that you can actually access yourself, and you can play around in, and you can make copies of and use yourself. So this is an example of a product launch template. It's basically kind of the same thing that I just showed you, like the go-to-market launch template with kind of more content filled in. So this board that I'm showing you is something that you can actually access and play around in and copy and use yourself and customize for your own product launches. We also have various marketing calendars, and we use these for the editorials that we're putting out and the emails that we're putting out. So this is our editorial calendar. Sorry, I had to blur some things out. Again, this first column, things to keep in mind. This is a list of resources and information that you would need to know if you are either writing an editorial or somehow contributing to an editorial in any way. The one thing that I wanted to point out to this about this board that I think is a really great tip when working in Trello, and I can't click into the board to show you, but in that upper left corner there is a card that says reference checklists, and you can see there's a little checklist icon that says 0 out of 32. So in that card there is a checklist that's been added to it that has 32 items that basically need to be checked off for every editorial task that you do. So whenever you add a new editorial card to this board, we want you to do these 32 things. We want you to check this, we want you to do this, we want you to make sure, links open in a new tab, we want you to make sure these translations happen, we want you to make sure, X, Y, Z. So when you create a new card in this editorial calendar, you can add a checklist to it, and you can actually copy that reference checklist, the checklist from that reference card over to it. So that's just a really good way if you have a board where you want people to do the exact same thing on every card. You can create one checklist and have people copy that checklist on every card. We also have an email calendar, and we really use this just for a calendar. You can see it's sectioned off by months, and then we use the due dates feature to denote what day and time the email is actually going out. So that's actually an example of, there are a lot of different ways you can use different features of Trello for different things. So you can add a due date to a card, which when you think about it, you're like, oh, okay, I'll use this to show when the work is due. But you don't have to use it as a due date. You can use it for, this is when the email is being sent out. And if you can see in the upper right corner, there's a link that says calendar. I can't click it in this presentation, but if you click that calendar link, that's a power-up that we've added. So when you click that, it shows a calendar view of all of the cards based on the due dates that we've added to them. And what's nice about having the calendar power-up with this email calendar is that when you're looking at these in a calendar view, you can see which days are really dense with emails that are being sent out. So that kind of gives you a red flag of oh, there's a lot of emails being sent out this day. Maybe I should double check that there aren't people that are receiving a million emails from me today. And finally, there are boards from our marketing design team. And of course, they're the prettiest boards, and I really love to look at them. So this is the main board for the marketing design team. Again, staying with the theme, the first board is, the first list is to kind of orient you to the board. It's about the team, gives you some resources. The next list has cards for ongoing projects. So these aren't necessarily things that you would assign to individual designers for specific weeks, but they're things that they're constantly working on. There's an incoming list, and this is used for if people want to come to the marketing design team and request that they do something, they would just add a card to this incoming list. It's a way to field requests from external teams. The team then uses this up next list to prioritize the work that they're going to do next. And then as you can see, there's a this week list for each designer. So in their weekly meeting, they pull this board up and they move tasks from the up next list into the individual designers list so they know what they're working on. So at any given time, you can come to this board, you can see what's been requested of the design team, you can see what's up next for them in a prioritized order, and you can see what each designer is working on. And finally, my favorite board on the marketing team is the marketing illustration repository. It's the most beautiful board that we have at Trello, I think. So this is basically anytime an illustration is made, whether it is for the blog or social media or the website or in product, the illustration and basically all of the assets associated with the illustration are put on this board in an organized way. And what's great about that is that, we often either reuse illustrations or we take an existing illustration and we iterate on it for new purposes. And we're not constantly having to sift through Dropbox or message all of our different illustrators to be like, hey, can you give me the file for this or that illustration? The other thing that I'll point out about these design boards is that a lot of times when designers are working on a design task, they will use a card to basically document all of the work that they're doing and get feedback on the work that they're doing. So as they start a task, maybe they'll do a simple sketch on paper and they'll take a picture of it and add it to the card. And then they will mention some people on their team and say, hey, can I get some feedback on it? Other people will come into the card, will comment on it. And then as they iterate, they keep adding pictures and images of what they're working on. So by the time they're done, by the time they get to this high fidelity, you can open up the card and scroll through all of the comments and attachments and see the entire history of the illustration that's been done, starting from the bottom with a pencil sketch all the way through the comments, all the decisions that were made, all the way up to the beautiful end product. So that's a really cool way of kind of using a Trello card to collaborate and to show kind of the history of decisions that were made in a really visual way. So those are all the boards I'm going to show you from the marketing team. Obviously there are more, but I hope that shows you kind of the different levels of boards that the marketing team uses. I'm going to move on to Trello for professional development. So the rest of the boards that I'm going to show are basically the boards that we use outside of our normal, everybody has their normal, this is the work that I do, these are the projects that I do for my job, but then there's all this other stuff I do outside of my normal job. So I'm getting into those boards now. So professional development, the first one I'm going to show you is a really simple board, but something that most people at Trello have. This is my one-on-one board that I have with my manager. And again, this is kind of like what I was talking about with the agenda for the marketing team board. This is a really simple board where we have a list of items to discuss, and we have a list of items that we've already discussed. And again, throughout the week, either I can add agenda items or my manager can add agenda items so that when we have our one-on-one, both he and I know exactly what we're about to talk about. We can open up cards as we talk about them, take notes on them, add action items, add due dates, and then move them over to the list that shows that we talked about them. Just a really great way to kind of document the things that you talk about with your manager. Along those same lines, this is a board where we track growth. And I know this kind of depends, each company, especially depending on how big and how kind of how, I guess, old your company is. Everybody has different ways of defining roles and defining how you kind of move up in your company. At Trello, which is now part of Atlassian, we have kind of a big structure for how you progress within your own role and how you level up, basically. So this is showing that in my role as a senior product designer, I'm expected to have competencies in all of these different skill areas. Each skill area is represented on its own card. Once a quarter, I'm expected to evaluate my own performance in each of these skill areas. And what's great about doing it on a Trello board is that, not only do I have a visual way of being able to kind of evaluate and show, where am I in each of these skill areas? Do I feel like I'm competent, proficient, advanced, master? I can easily kind of slide them back and forth. But for each of those skill areas, I can open up the card, and when I'm evaluating myself, again, I can use the comments to write notes about how I'm performing. So then after I evaluate myself, I meet with my manager, and we go through each card, open it up, talk about my self-evaluation, and then he also leaves comments. So What's great about this, again, not only that it's a visual way to kind of chart out my own competencies, but when it comes time to do like a performance review or to talk about bonuses or promotions, we have this running history of all the talks that we've had about my growth. We have actual documentation of all the discussions we had, all of the areas that I've grown. And finally, skill building. So if you have a group of people that is working on building the same skill together, it's great to create a Trello board for it. This is an example. I'm working with a few other designers on a Skillshare class about illustration. So instead of just working on it by ourselves, we created a Trello board. And this is a great way to kind of hold each other accountable and to also get feedback on our work. So next, Trello for travel and events. So being a mostly remote company, we probably have more travel than a lot of other companies because we do have a lot of offsites where we get teams together in the same location. But a Trello board, obviously, since a lot of people use it to plan vacations, it's also really good to use for travel for work as well. So next week, we actually have our annual event called Trello Together, where everybody at Trello goes to the same location. I'm pretty excited about that. So this is a board that we're using for Trello Together. The first list is a list of event resources. Each card has a different resource. It starts with a code of conduct, which PSA, you should always have a code of conduct for all of the events that you go to. Very important. Okay. Yes, you should always do that. There's information about social media. There's information about travel. There's information about expenses, anything you need to know if you're going on this trip. And then the rest of it is just kind of a really pretty and informative view of the agenda. And then if you open each card, it will actually give information about the event. In addition to that, there's kind of a more, I guess, less fun board about travel. So the first list has more specific information about booking travel, and then the rest of the lists just show when everybody is arriving, and you open up the cards and it gives people's flight information. I'm not going to access this board that much, but if you're the person trying to track who's coming and going when, this is a great way to track that. And then this is just one more example of an offsite we had. This is from when my product design team got together in New York last year. This is an example of kind of a smaller scale offsite where we have the travel information and the agenda all in one board. The first list is basic information about the event. The next three lists are the agenda, and then that last list is information about who's going as well as their travel information. So this next section I think is the most fun one, Trello for culture building. This is especially valuable at a company that's mostly remote because we don't have that in-person super fun I guess water cooler talk. So a lot of times we use Trello boards to kind of have fun with each other. That sounds so nerdy. But I do think these are things that can help build culture and help people, connect with each other and have fun at any type of company. So the first one is really simple. It's basically like creating a company directory in Trello. And I know that there are a lot of HR softwares that will create a company directory for you, and you shouldn't have to create another one in Trello. But what I like about this is that it's really visual, it's really tactile, and it can be really fun. When we onboard new people, one of their first tasks is to add a card for themselves in the right column for their team. They add their own picture, and then on the card back, they write their bio, and then they attach any links they want, whether it's like their portfolio or pictures of their pets or anything like that. So it's much more personal and fun than like an HR directory online. This is called Meownagers. As a remote company, we are on video calls a lot, and a lot of us have cats. So often when we're on video calls, the cats just walk across the video. So we've started taking screenshots whenever a cat photobombs or video bombs us, and we add it to this Trello board. So that's a fun one. We have a board, people at Trello who are interested in gaming have a board to share all the games they play. I'm not on that board. I'm kind of like a Mario Kart girl. Travel Rex Hub, so we have people who live all around the world, different countries, different cities. So we started a board to kind of identify who lives where, and we have a lot of people who like to travel. So if I'm traveling to a certain city, I can come to this board and see who lives there and see what they recommend doing. And finally, Television Club, because we all love watching TV, and we all love talking about TV, and we all love asking for recommendations about TV, so we decided to put it in a Trello board. What I like about this is, we have it all sectioned by different types of shows, and it's probably really difficult to see in the slides, but we installed a voting power-up. And if you look in the lower left corner of one of the cards, there's a little thumbs up icon with a number next to it. So basically, if you like the show on the card, you can vote yes on it. So when you come to the board, you can see the shows that are like the most liked. So you can see the shows that are like most recommended. That's a very silly way of using the voting power-up, but the voting power-up can also be used for like work-related things as well. You should consider it. All right. The last type of boards that I want to show are public boards. And for those unfamiliar with the different types of visibility of boards, the most restrictive visibility you can add to a board is a private board. And that means that only the people that you add to that board can see that board. Nobody else can see it. The next level up is team visible, meaning anybody on your Trello team can see that board. The next level up is only available if you have the Trello Enterprise tier, and that's called organization visible, which basically means anybody in your company or organization can see that board. And then finally, there is public, meaning that anybody on the entire internet can see the board and that it will come up in Google search results. That level of visibility is scary for a lot of companies because they don't want their employees putting sensitive information out on the Google nets for everybody to see. But there are actually really cool ways that you can use public boards to share information about your company and your products, almost using it as kind of like a microsite. So for example, Trello uses a public board to share our development roadmap. So we use different cards to show what features either we recently released or we're going to release soon. So this is a nice way, basically a nice kind of overview of all of the new things that we're adding to the Trello product. One of the things I want to point out here, you can see the About This Board drawer coming out from the right. There's a place to put a description. This is a new feature where you can basically add a description to a board. And whenever you come to a public board, this About This Board section is visible. So it helps you kind of orient people to the board. So you can say, what this board is about, how to use this board, what you can expect to see here. So I'm going to show you some public boards from other companies. Twitch has a public board. So Twitch does a lot of efforts to improve the discoverability of their streams, like helping people find the streams that they want to find. So Twitch has a public board to show what work they're doing around that. Slack has a platform roadmap for developers. So if I'm a developer and I'm trying to build an integration with Slack, I can come to this public board and see what people at Slack are doing that might influence the work that I'm doing. And finally, Fortnite, which I'm not familiar with. My son comes home from school and he does like Fortnite dances, and I like don't even know what he's doing, and I'm like, that's a video game, right? And he's like, no, it's a dance, and I don't know. So they have posted community issues on a public board, and this is basically like issues or problems that have been reported to them, and either they are working on it, or they've solved it, or they have like a current workaround for it. And I know that all of these public boards are kind of like tech focused, but I think that they can be translated to a lot of different industries, especially with a focus on like, these are the issues that we're thinking about right now, and here are ways that we're addressing it, and here are workarounds, basically a public board to be able to say, like, we hear you and we're working on it. So now we've come to the part of the presentation where I'm going to share some tricks for using Trello at scale. I will say again that there's not one proper way to use Trello. That's part of what makes Trello so great, and that's part of why people get frustrated with Trello. So what I'm going to share here is basically what I personally have found helpful for using Trello within a team, within a large organization. I would love to hear what you all have used. Hopefully this will be helpful. So my first piece of advice is don't let your Trello structure happen too organically. And what I mean by this is that what we have found in terms of how Trello comes about in a lot of workplaces is that it starts with one person or maybe a couple people using Trello for kind of personally managing their tasks or using it for one small project. And then from there, maybe a couple more team members use it. And then from there, their whole team uses it. And then from there, more teams start to use it. So the use of Trello in an organization often happens, starting small and then growing organically from there. The problem with that is that everybody has kind of a different mental model of how Trello should be used, of how it should be structured, of how you should track progress in Trello. So, if you start with one person and then let it grow out, you just have a whole bunch of different people with different mental models of how Trello should be used. So I would recommend, if you are going to use Trello with your entire team or with your entire company, actually sit down and have meetings and discussions about how you're going to use Trello and actually define how you're going to use Trello. And talk about things like, how do we mark things as done? There's a lot of different ways you can do that in Trello. You can decide to add due dates to cards and check the checkbox on the due dates to mark it as done. You can decide we're going to create lists called done and move cards to those lists. You can decide we're going to archive all the cards that are done. You can decide we're going to create a board for all the cards that are done and move the cards to that board. There's really any number of ways you can mark things as done. How granular will our cards and boards be? So this is another area where it seems like people have a lot of disagreement in. Are you going to have one main board and each project that you work on is going to be represented in a card, and then within that card you'll track tasks via like comments and checklists? Or are you going to create one board per project and then each card is going to be an individual task? Or does it depend on the size of the project? So talking about like at what level are you going to make cards, at what level are you going to make boards, how are you going to use checklists, like actually defining that up front can save you a lot of pain later. And then finally, what's your architecture of boards? And specifically keeping in mind that there are kind of two main types of boards when you use it for work. One is a board where you're showing progress and you're expecting cards to move from left to right, Kanban style. And the other one is basically a static board where you're not expecting cards to move around. It's just a board where you're tracking information. And what I mean by an architecture of boards is, hopefully when I was showing you all of the marketing team boards, you saw that there was almost a hierarchy. Like that first one that I showed was very high level. It was meant for external stakeholders. It showed like high level projects. The very last one I showed you was very granular, low level, all of the illustrations from the marketing design team. So you could do things, this probably sounds silly, but you could like whiteboard out the hierarchy of your Trello board so everybody has an understanding of how they all relate to each other. Get in the habit of looking at and working in Trello boards together as a team. So another pain point that I often see is that, when we use Trello as a team, our boards always get out of date. People don't update their cards, and then Trello is useless because nobody's actually working in it. I have seen that as a problem with Trello and any other tool that anybody's using to track work. But what's nice about Trello is how visual and tactile it is, which makes it really nice to have up during meetings. So I mentioned that a lot throughout my presentation, that we have boards that track agendas, track topics that we want to talk about. So we actually have them up during meetings. We interact with them during meetings, so that way they all stay up to date. Link and mirror to content instead of trying to duplicate it across boards. So another pain point people have is that, I'm part of a lot of different boards, and I have these tasks that I'm working on that I want to be represented on all these different boards. I have my own board where I'm tracking all my work personally, and then I have my team board, and then I have these other boards, and I have this one project that I want represented on all these boards. If I try to do that manually, the information is going to get out of sync. But instead of trying to keep it updated on all of the different boards, there are ways you can just keep it updated in one spot, either on one card or one board, and link to it or mirror it on other boards. The easiest way to do that, and the thing that I default to, is basically tracking the work on one card or one board, and then on your other boards, creating basically empty cards and then linking to that one card or board that you're working in. So when you create an empty card, you click to add an attachment, and then you click the Trello type of attachment, and from there you can either add a Trello card or a Trello board, and it adds the Trello attachment to the card. There are additionally power-ups that actually let you mirror cards between boards, and that means that it's essentially the same card on two different boards. So if you update it on board A, it automatically gets updated on board B. Again, I don't have time to go into the details of installing power-ups, but I wanted to let you know the names of them. There's Board Sync by Unito, and then there's Mirror by Unito, and that actually lets you mirror the different fields in the card. So like checklists, attachments, due dates, all of that stuff. Along the same lines, I recommend exploring and experimenting with power-ups. For those unfamiliar with what a power-up is, it's basically an integration or an additional add-on to your Trello board that helps make it more customized and more robust for your needs. These are especially helpful if you're using Trello for project management or in an agile environment, and you want those features that are like specific to an agile process. And I'm going to show you some power-ups that have to do with that. So Placker is a really popular one. This is going to give you the functionality that you want for kind of the more reporting side of project management, so like Gantt charts or a reporting dashboard. There's Burn Down for Trello and Agile Dashboards by Corello. Those are both helpful for project management and for kind of agile reporting for your Trello boards. This one isn't necessarily specific to project management, but this is probably my favorite power-up. It's called Custom Fields. It's exactly how it sounds. It's basically the ability to add any type of field to the cards on your board: text field, date field, number field, checkbox, multiple choice. And you can use this for anything you want. Sky's the limit. You can use it to add a t-shirt size to your cards. You can use it to add a sizing estimate. You can use it to add an order number or a name or some sort of like ship date or whatever you want. Custom fields are really helpful if you have really specific customized pieces of information that you want added to your cards. Think of Trello as a hub and integrate with other tools that you're using. So obviously, we don't think that you're only going to use Trello and nothing else. But what's great about Trello is that it integrates with a lot of other tools. So for example, if you think that Trello is not good for project management, but you want to use it for other planning and coordinating, but you want to use Asana for project management and you want them to talk to each other, there's a power-up called Asana Sync where they can talk to each other. Another example is that we have a really great Salesforce power-up where you can import all of your data from Salesforce, make it appear in your cards, so that let's say you have a board with your sales pipeline, instead of jumping back and forth between Trello and Salesforce, you can just see all your Salesforce data there. And my last piece of advice is to explore Trello's resources. So I'm super biased, but our marketing team really puts out a lot of really great content. So first of all, Trello.com/teams. Earlier in my presentation, I talked about how we have a lot of public boards available for inspiration that you can open up, play around with, and copy for yourself. If there's one thing I recommend after this meetup, it's that you go to trello.com/teams and you click on that marketing playbook. That's going to have examples of the editorial calendar, the marketing team board, a lot of the boards that I showed you that you can actually open up and copy and use for your own team. Blog.trello.com, awesome blog. You can search for any subject that you want. Super great content. And finally, Trello.com/webinars. So what's great about our webinars, the topic of my presentation went pretty broad today. I kind of gave you a look into how we use Trello in a lot of different ways at Trello. What's great about our webinars is they go really deep into specific topics, and they give you a lot of specifics about how to do certain things in Trello, whether it's running an Agile process or installing power-ups or improving your team's productivity. So I really recommend watching those as well. So that wraps up my presentation. I really appreciate you guys listening, and I look forward to your questions. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on Twitter at Anna_Saraceno. Thank you so much.
Let's give it up for Anna. The only thing I could think of with this transition is step into my office. That doesn't make sense at all.
But I'll step into your office.
Step into my office. So we are just going to guide this conversation with a few brief kind of questions that we had as the board as we were putting together and coordinating this presentation with Anna. So again, thank you. Yeah, right, I'm just like holding it. But then we want to turn it over to you. So we'll, start the conversation with a few questions, then pass around the mic. If there are specific things that you felt you really wanted a tactical answer to, or that you just want to surface thinking that other people may have the same question, like please voice it. Again, wait till the microphone is delivered to you so we can make sure it's recorded, but we will go ahead and get that started. So first off, I love Trello. I use it for so many different areas of my life. We use it on the Agile Marketing Indy board to coordinate locations for events, and we actually just started a board for our podcast, so we have a little content calendar going there. I use it for many other ventures. My husband and I own a small business. That's where we got these t-shirts from. So, but we use Trello for that as well. So I'm a huge fan of all the different plugins and power-ups. And anytime I see like a cool new feature I can get like one inkling of productivity from, I just gravitate towards those. But I think that a lot of marketers, like we love shiny objects. And so, if you see a cool new plugin or feature, you want to turn it on like immediately, even if it doesn't necessarily have like a productivity impact. So have you seen in various organizations like plugin power-up overload? And what are the symptoms of that? What can marketers do to prevent that kind of shiny object syndrome with Trello?
That's a good question. I think that the first thing that comes to mind when I think of power-up overload is that there are a fair amount of power-ups that add something visual to the card cover. So right when you come into the board, it looks like crazy busy. For example, I showed you a power-up, that custom fields power-up.
I love that one.
A lot of times the custom field will display on the front of the card cover. If you add 1 million custom fields, your board just looks crazy. So I think that there's a visual element to figuring out if you have, power-up overload. I also think there's a functional element. And one of the things that I recommend, not only for power-up usage, but just for your general, like how you have Trello set up, is to regularly evaluate collaboratively with your team, like how are these power-ups working for you? How often are you guys using them? Is it providing value? And if not, turn it off.
Cool. Another point that I really resonated with in your tips for scale was the idea of group incorporation of Trello, like looking at it in your marketing meetings, making sure that if you're doing sprint planning or just project planning, you have it pulled up on a TV, much like, this presentation. I still feel though that in many instances of using Trello, there are a few people that are really slow to adopt, or they just don't want to adopt. And that's, like you said, any tool has that. So what are some best practices that you've seen for team members that are just really process averse, or are the ones that are like grumpy project management people? Because we all know, everyone in this room has, worked with a grumpy project management person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, like I said, if you start to think of Trello as more of a hub.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the great things about integrations is that if you have people who are just like, I have to use this other tool, chances are there are ways to integrate that tool with Trello, whether they're working in, Google Docs or Asana or, whatever other tool they have. Like, chances are, if they're really like, I'm just not going to use Trello, chances are you can still make Trello talk to whatever tool they're using. And then, yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because, like you said, it's a problem with every tool. But I think that, again, if you can show the value of being, of how like collaborative you can be with Trello, like through using it as a team with meetings, I think that kind of helps adoption rather than it being like, you have a meeting and then you say, okay, go update your cards in Trello. I feel like that's the least effective way of getting people to adopt a tool.
Sure. How do you keep meetings that, this is an on-the-fly question, so I didn't send you this one. How do you keep meetings that are very tactical, a lot of time moving around cards or updating tasks or whatever? How do you keep people engaged during those meetings?
I mean, it's like any other meeting. I am a fan of, I'm really, I don't know, I love like meeting facilitation and I'm really, I don't know, crazy about like making sure there's a meeting facilitator and a note taker.
You're in good company here.
So, the person who is in charge of kind of updating the Trello board during the meeting, like think of them as a note taker who's kind of documenting what's going on during the meeting. And if we don't have that set up where it's just one person updating the board, a lot of times it's really collaborative where there's, maybe our product manager is running the meeting and kind of like opening up the cards as we talk about them, but they'll say, instead of like typing every word that they're saying, they'll be like, hey, Anna, can you update the card with what we just talked about, and then like move on. So we have different people throughout the meeting updating the cards as the conversation is happening. So there's not just one person doing all of it.
Awesome. Last but not least, before we turn it over to you guys for questions, tell us more about your pet zoo you had mentioned in the bio. You have many pets.
Yes, so. We have a lot of pets. We have 3 cats. Mister, he's an orange cat. He wears a bow tie. Big fat Bobo. He's now less fat Bobo. He lost 4 pounds, and now he jumps on the kitchen counter and tries to eat our bread. We purchased a bread box because our cat was trying to eat our bread off the counter. That's a fun fact about me. I never thought I would own a bread box, but I do now. Judah Maccabee, the miracle Hanukkah kitten. He has 3 legs. We got him on the first night of Hanukkah last year. And we have 2 dogs. We have Stewie, whose full name is Kristen Stewart, because she looks just like the actress Kristen Stewart. And we have Teddy, who we call Teddy Tooters, the tooting tyrant, because he is constantly barking. So
have any of your cats shown up on the meownagers?
Yes, yeah. Mister usually like jumps on my shoulders like a parrot when I'm in meetings.
I love it. I used to work for FormStack, which we're going to speak to in a little bit for a location, but that was a very highly remote company, very distributed, and our cat Vinny, I would joke that he needed his own salary because he was on the video so much. So yeah, I love it. All right, questions. What questions do you guys have? We've got our lovely mic passer who will be delivering the microphone for questions.
All right, I was going to come up with a very cool Trello-related question for you, but I have to ask.
Okay.
Did you, and for some of you this might fall flat, did you name your cat Mister after a character in a book series?
No.
Okay, never mind, because, all right. I just revealed what a literary nerd I am. So
On a podcast
that's
too, might I
on a
add.
podcast. Yes. Show my age and my tech-verse mindset. Thanks.
Thank you for your question.
What else?
I have a question in general about project management, and maybe I wanted to tap into your experience for an opinion on this. So last week I made a bunch of tasks, and we just started using this project manager tool. It's a different one, but and I put due dates on everything, and I noticed that due dates don't really seem to work, that people either don't really pay attention to them, or they wait until the last day that it's actually due, and then it's not done, and so it gets pushed forward. Then I was reading another like time management book, Getting Things Done, about how you shouldn't assign things to particular days, but by priority. How do you use project management, or in Trello, do you see a lot of people using due dates for things, or is it more like an organic look at things?
That's a great question. I will start the answer by saying that I'm not a project manager, so my answer probably isn't all that great as a designer. But I do think a lot about project management, and I totally I have seen what you're seeing in terms of like you assign due dates, and then the due date comes, and it's like, oh, it's fine, we'll push the due date, or everybody scrambles to do the work. I have found that instead of assigning due dates, I mean, it's kind of similar, but basically scheduling follow-up meetings, instead of saying like these tasks will be done by this date, just saying like we will regroup on this date, and you're expected to have this work done by the time we regroup, so that there's not a due date where you finish the work and you're not actually talking to anybody. There's a date where like you will be talking to all these people, and if you don't finish that work, then you're going to come to this meeting and have to report to all these people. So there's a level of accountability there. That's probably not actually a good project management trick. That's just what I've found is really helpful. I'm sure someone else in this room has a better answer for that. But I will say that in Trello, a lot of people do use due dates, and we try to use visual indicators for the due dates. It's green if it's been done, it's yellow if it's upcoming, it's red if it's past due. So we try to use those visual indicators as a way when you come to the board to kind of like alert you of like kind of priority order of like, oh gosh, you need to do this thing right now. So yeah, that's just kind of one visual way to do it.
Hello.
Hi.
So I had a question. When you log into Trello, does it mostly, this might be more of a technical question, does it send notifications out through like email, or is it mostly you log in and you see what's kind of happening in Trello? Does that make sense?
Good question. Are you talking about a specific type of notification?
Maybe if something's coming up due, or if someone maybe added a new important project that maybe you missed, does a notification get sent out that way?
Yeah, so there are email notifications that come from Trello that will go straight to your email that say like so-and-so added you to a board, or so-and-so mentioned you on a card. But then there's also notifications within Trello. In the upper right corner, there's a little bell icon that will turn red if you have a notification, and you can click on that, and there's basically like a historical list of all of your notifications. So it's both ways. And you can also get push notifications on the mobile app too.
We'll do one more question. It's yours.
Okay. No pressure.
Right.
When you're working in Trello, do you find like a sweet spot with number of people? Like if there's too many people, it's like everyone just ignores it. But if there's like 2 people, it's like 4 or 5. Does it change per task? Just curious your experience.
Do you mean like per board, or on a team, or?
All of them, I guess. So if you're working like when everyone needs to do like the quick glance, like if one person doesn't look at it, then it doesn't really matter. Like
Right.
it's kind of useless. But even on a card, if like 5 people need to work on one cart, is that like too many people, like too many cooks in the kitchen?
I see.
So
yeah.
So I guess both those scenarios.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's hard to quantify that in a general sense because this probably sounds like a cop-out, but it really depends. I mean, on boards, in my presentation I talked about the two kind of different types of boards that I see. One where it's meant to show progress over time, where you expect cards to move from left to right, and the other is just meant to show information. For boards where it's just meant to show information and you're not expecting cards to move around, I feel like the number of people on that board doesn't really matter that much because it's just informational. For boards where you're tracking progress, I do feel like you end up with too many cooks in the kitchen. It really depends on the project. I want to say like around 20 people, like that, over that that would be a lot of people contributing to a Trello board. When you're talking about individual cards, the ability to @mention people and to assign faces to cards, I think really helps with the ability for a lot of people to contribute to a card. So just using features like that, like @mentioning people, adding faces to cards, I think helps with allowing a lot of different people to contribute to it. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, it does, because I use Asana sometimes, or I did, and when you have 4 people commenting on something, it just kind of got out of control.
Yeah, definitely. And that can, I could see that happening in Trello or any tool where there's kind of too many people commenting. And it's really at that point where, as I mentioned before, you might want to start to evaluate, if there's too many people commenting on this card, maybe we need to break this card into multiple cards.
Awesome. Well, do you mind sticking around a few minutes after to answer any
Sure.
additional questions?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we will turn it back over to Mohammed. Thank you again. Let's give it up for Anna.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're through that. Our next event is live on Eventbrite right now. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. Quick question for the crowd. Did any of you who came here invite someone who came along with you? Awesome. I've got 2 people that brought someone with them, which is phenomenal. That's really how this room continues to evolve and change and grow. For those 2 of you who came and brought someone with you, please see Margarita over here. She has a 50% off discount code for the next event for you, and we'll help you get that all set up. That is one that actually we do not talk about a lot, but we probably should more often. Anytime you're bringing someone with you, come see us. We have a flat-out, consistent 50% off the next event you come to referral that we will give you for anyone you bring in this room. And many of you have brought people multiple times, so keep that going. Really, really, really appreciate that. We have Chris Davis, Director of Education from Active Campaign, coming in next month. We have a little bit of a gap here, right? So the next event will actually be on June 26th, and it will be also on the north side at FormStack. So if you love Northside events, you're set, right? 2 months in a row. At their lovely office, they actually just moved into a new office. So come see that. That is live on Eventbrite. If you have any questions about how to find that event, also come see anyone that was standing up during the board portion, and we will help you out with that. Super excited about them. They work with tons of marketers across the entire country with their marketing automation platform. They're actually going to come in and chat quite a bit about kind of best practices and lessons learned that they have gathered from tons of different marketers across the country who are working on their platform, whether it's inside of Active Campaign or other things that they're seeing. So really, really excited about that one.
Actually, so it's their first out of town.
That's a really good one. Yes, they actually are coming in from Chicago. So he works in the main office in Chicago. They are also opening an office here in Indianapolis right now. So they're pretty excited about kind of getting connected to the Indy tech community and the marketing community as a whole here in Indianapolis. Next thing is podcast. So we dropped another episode this morning. It's kind of a mini-sode. We're trying to drop those in between these larger events. This is with the author of The Art of Agile Marketing. I kind of mentioned a little bit about that earlier. Go jump on that. It is available wherever you get your podcasts from, whether that is iTunes, Google Play Store, or Spotify, or whatever else you might like. Once again, if you need help, we will help you find that thing. And one thing I love Bill for is that he is sending a nice little box of his books for our group. So if you have not subscribed, subscribe now. Come see us, and we will pull one of you guys to get one of those books. Actually, I think it's in like 5 or 6 of them. So come and we'll pull like 5 or 6 of you to get the book. I actually read through it last week, and it's really, really good. Also, oddly, I'm just being awkward here, the cover feels really good. It's like really smooth and soft, and it felt really nice in my hand while I was reading it. So go ahead and subscribe. Or if you're already subscribed, come just show us that, and we'll get your name in there as well. We'll kind of gather all those up. So with that, thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you again, Anna. Really, really appreciate you making the trip up to Canada. It's amazing.
It was a rough trip, but.
And thanks to all of you for coming in and hanging out with us tonight. I really, really appreciate it once again. Thank you.